Welcome to the Fund the People podcast. I'm your host, Rusty Stahl. Thank you for making time to listen or watch the show today. We are now posting audio and, as much as possible, video on our YouTube channel. So we hope you'll tune in there to check out the Fund the People podcast and other great content shared by Fund the People. So check us out, youtube.com/@fundthepeople. That's youtube.com/fundthepeople. Just go on YouTube, search for Fund the People. You'll find our channel. And on there, we've got the podcast coming in, as well as our short promo clips from each episode and video versions of the show. So be sure to check us out on YouTube at Fund the People. I'll put the link in the show notes. Now, this is part 2 of our mini-series on the unique value of America's nonprofit workforce. On the previous episode, I spoke about why it's important for nonprofit leaders, funders, infrastructure groups, and capacity builders, and everybody in the sector to be talking about the value of the nonprofit workforce. First, we need to talk about the existence of the workforce. Almost 13 million Americans earning a living through public service in nonprofit jobs and careers of all stripes across all ideologies, all issues, all dimensions of our life in this country. So we need to talk about it. We need to be talking about it. We need to be talking about it in our own heads and get the deficit thinking out of our brains and reinforce that this is an incredibly valuable and unique workforce, 10% of the private workforce in this country. And I discussed how the nonprofit workforce creates value for individuals and communities in this country. On this episode, I'm going to focus on how the nonprofit workforce relates to the economy and offers value to the American economy. And then in the next and final episode of this mini-series, I'm going to talk about how the nonprofit workforce offers value to our democracy, to our governance, our self-governance, and to the liberty, freedom, and justice for all in this country. So let's talk about how the nonprofit workforce contributes to the economy. Now, you may think, wait a minute, how can not-for-profits, how can organizations that, don't care about turning a profit help the economy? That doesn't make any sense. The economy is all about making money. Well, I guess it does seem somewhat counterintuitive. But the nonprofit sector and the nonprofit workforce does contribute mightily to the strength of this economy. Nonprofit workers bring money into their communities through grants and contracts and donations. Nonprofit workers earn money, earn a living. So nonprofits are job creators. And nonprofit workers actually support for-profit workers. Nonprofit workforce actually helps prepare, equip, even in some cases recruit people to work in businesses, to start small businesses, to work in government, supporting veterans and military families. So there are a lot of ways that counterintuitively, a workforce focused on mission, not profit, actually helps the economy. So let me talk about how the nonprofit workforce is a significant economic force for the public good as a workforce itself. These are some points that I prepared with my colleagues from George Mason University and their Nonprofit Employment Data Project, or a NED project, Nonprofit Employment Data. George Mason University, by the way, a private nonprofit organization. And the reason we need George Mason University and their Nonprofit Employment Data Project is because our government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the Department of Labor, only publishes employment data and jobs data about nonprofits every 5 years. And when they do, it's about 2 or 3 years behind. The data that they publish is old. And as fast as economic conditions change in this country, in this decade, that is almost useless data. It's certainly not useful in terms of knowing a current snapshot of where things stand in nonprofit employment. So George Mason University and before it, Johns Hopkins University, both private nonprofit institutions made up for that government failure by helping the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the government, to pull that data out of their system, disaggregate it from the overall jobs data across the economy, and analyze it and publish it. And this is information that we shared on Capitol Hill when I was there for the Foundations on the Hill event in March of this year, 2026. So nonprofits are major U.S. job creators, employing a significant private workforce for the public good. The data as of 2022 showed 12.8 million paid workers. Almost 10% of all non-governmental jobs in America are nonprofit jobs. And this makes nonprofits our third largest private source of jobs in the country. So if you aggregate all those nonprofits out there across issue areas, across function areas, across geography, and this, of course, includes big ones like the private universities and hospitals and museums and cultural institutions, as well as the teeny tiny ones with one employee or a couple people. So aggregating all of those jobs, and those are just the paid jobs, doesn't include the activists and volunteers and board members, all of whom tend to be not paid. It doesn't include the contractors. This is employees. 12.8 million people. That is larger than manufacturing, which comes in just below it. That's larger than construction. It's larger than finance and insurance. It's a ton of jobs, okay? Nonprofit jobs are crucial to state and regional economies. Nonprofits employ an even larger share of private workers. So the average overall in the country is 10%. But in the states, 26 of the states, it's more than 10%. In 26 of our states, it's more than 10%. And that is across the country. In the Midwest, the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, employing more than 10% of private workers on average. So I'll give you a little flavor. In the Northeast U.S., the average is 16.9%, almost 17% of private jobs are nonprofit jobs in the Northeast. In the Mid-Atlantic, it's 14.2%. 14% of private jobs are nonprofit. In the Midwest, 11.6% of private employment, nonprofit jobs. Beyond that, it drops to less than 10%. In the Southeast, it's 7.3%. The Southwest, 7.0%. In the West, 8.5%. And in the non-contiguous states, Alaska and Hawaii, 9.6%, almost 10%. But on average, across the country, across all the regions, it's about 10% of private jobs are nonprofit. This is a fact little known by the White House, the Senate, the House, the Supreme Court, your state representative, your state senator, your congressperson, your senator, your mayor, your city council member. This is information that is for some reason rare and barely known. Nonprofits are durable and reliable employers, even during major crises. During the Great Recession and its aftermath in the period of 2007 to 2017, the nonprofit sector increased its workforce by a total of 18.6%. By contrast, for-profit employment grew in that same period by 6.2%. So nonprofits grew jobs at 3 times the rate of for-profits over a 10-year period during the Great Recession. Even during the COVID pandemic, nonprofits kept a higher percentage of their workforce employed than businesses did. In 2019 and 2020, nonprofits lost 4.5% of their overall workforce. But that was a significantly lower decrease than the 6.9% lost by for-profits. U.S. nonprofits paid over $8.7 billion in wages to their 12.8 million employees in 2022. That's almost $9 billion in wages from nonprofits in 2022. Nonprofit workers actually earn an average weekly wage that is nearly the same as for-profits overall. And in fields where nonprofits dominate, like health care, education, social service, nonprofit workers earn actually more than for-profit peers. So that is a little bit about what the workforce actually looks like in the numbers. Now, as I said earlier, I think, if you look at it, nonprofit workers are training and preparing and equipping people through workforce development, through community and economic development and finance institutions that are nonprofits, through all kinds of recovery and support institutions that are nonprofits, preparing people to enter the workforce in for-profits. You have universities incubating businesses, helping people to start and launch and prepare for launching new small businesses, which then become job creators in their communities. So there are all kinds of ways that nonprofits actually help the for-profit job market. And the last thing I'll say here is that nonprofit workers improve the quality of life in their communities so that those communities are places where people want to move to and live in and stay in and raise kids and get jobs and contribute to the community. So in that way, as nonprofits improve the quality of life in a given place, they are improving the economy of that place. If people want to move to a place because not only does it have cute cafes or good schools, cute cafes being businesses, good public schools being government-led, but if it has private services that enrich educational life, like camps, preschools, after schools, if it has environmental groups that are ensuring that the water is clean, the air is clean, there are parks that are well taken care of by volunteers or privately created nonprofit parks. There's several here in the community I live in that really add to the beauty and the livability of this place. Or museums. Most museums are nonprofits. Good hospitals, mostly nonprofits. So improving the quality of life, making a place livable and attractive for businesses to move into, for individuals and families to move into, that improves the quality of the place and actually improves the tax base of a place, enabling the government to then provide more services. So for all these reasons and more, nonprofits do provide an incredible contribution to the economy. So that's what I want to share. There's a lot more data we could share about how nonprofits directly bring cash into their regions. I know Cal Nonprofits, the California Association of Nonprofits, has done great research about that. And so I'll put links to that in the show notes. I think the report's called Causes Count. And that really shows how California's economy, which is one of the biggest economies in the world, certainly one of the biggest economies in the country, how much nonprofits contribute to jobs and bringing resources into California. Fund the People is a member of Cal Nonprofits proudly and a partner with them. So I'm happy to share that. And I'll share the 2-pager that I pulled some of the data from that I shared today. That's from the George Mason University studies, and I'll link to their reports as well, which are fantastic. So next time, in part 3 of this mini-series, we'll talk about the value of the nonprofit workforce for our democracy, for our government, for the services that we all look for from government, and for our constitutional rights and freedoms and liberties. And as I said at the beginning, justice for all. So thanks for listening to the Fund the People podcast. In this time of acute crisis, be sure to keep your tank full, take care of yourself, and take care of one another. And I'll talk to you next time here on your Fund the People podcast.